Hi, welcome back. I'm Naren, and in this video, we will check out how chess puzzles can help in improving our chess skills. And if you look at the puzzle in this slide, there is a mate in half a move, white to move, and black king is in the corner h1. So, how can you mate? So, while you think about this problem, we will proceed and come back to this at the end. And about my journey, I think I solved a lot of puzzles in 2017 to cross 2000 rating in chess.com. And then it was stagnant. And recently, this week, I crossed another milestone. So I just wanted to share some of the tips that helped me to cross the next milestone. And we will come back to this at the end. So why we need to solve chess puzzles? Definitely, it will improve your chess skills, like the pattern recognition. So if you're solving a lot of mating problems, you can easily recognize any mating threat or the mating possibility that you can achieve in any position, and different tactics, whether winning a piece or improving your current position. And this will definitely improve your calculations as you improve the rating of your solving puzzles. You will be solving different kind of puzzles which needs a lot of calculations. So you need to identify the candidate moves, eliminate, and even you should go till the end of the variation. So it definitely needs a lot of calculations, and it improves your calculation while playing any game. And in a way or indirectly, it can help to evaluate a position, even though there are other methods to evaluate a position. But this skill, like you can identify some patterns and all that, indirectly help you to evaluate a position in some way, whether you can see a mating attack or some tactics to be up in material, or even to get a feel that okay, there is nothing like mating threat or tactics, can also help you to evaluate a position. And where can you solve puzzles and improve your skills? Some of the websites where you can try is chess.com, Leeches, Chess Tempo, and ChessBase. And how can we solve, like how can we improve solving any puzzle? So one thing is you can just look at the last move played by the opponent and see what changed in the position, because that can give you an indication that there is a new opportunity because of the last move. This may not be necessary in all the puzzles, but in many puzzles, the last move played will create some opportunities or create some threats. So look out for the last move played in the position. So that can help you a lot, instead of just looking at the position without any knowledge of the last. And next is like you need to evaluate the position to some extent from the problem's point of view, from the puzzle's point of view, whether there is a definite mating solution, or there is just a winning material, or is it a bad position for you and you need to defend it, maybe like a draw. So many puzzles will be related to mating or winning material, but there can be really some positions where you need to defend. So the puzzle won't explicitly say what kind of puzzle it is. So you need to find it out yourself. So it comes down to evaluating the position. And some of the easier way to find out a candidate moves is to find out whether there is any check to the king, or there is any capturing any material, or any threats like mating threats and all. You need to look at it from both sides, not just from the side which has the next move in the puzzle. And another technique that I normally use for the opponent's pieces, I just ignore every piece and even pawn and just look at the opponent's king and all the pieces of my color. So then it gives an idea of the different ways you can attack the king. So this can help in the mating kind of problems, so that it is obvious for you to what are the ways you can mate, and then putting back like the opponent's pieces on the board mentally you will find out what are the bottlenecks, what are the um, what are the defensive ideas that opponent has. And as you go on solving a lot of problems, a lot of puzzles, so you slowly start to build on patterns. You will slowly recognize some mating threads, mating patterns, or material winning patterns, or some ideas in your solution. Maybe deflecting a piece which is defending the material, some material or the opponent's king, or rook left. So you will try to see different themes and patterns, and the goal is to remember them so that you can easily identify those patterns when you solve future problems. And while calculating, make sure that you complete full variations. You should not just stop at a couple of moves if it is, let's say, some 5-6 moves variation, because their initial moves may look positive for you, but unless you spend time in thinking the full variations, where it is definitely advantage for you in mating or winning material or even defending, don't stop your calculation. So that's how, like, initially it may be hard for you to extend the calculations to many moves, but that is one of the key to improve your skills as you solve more puzzles. And also, when you look at one variation, always try to think from the opponent's point of view at the end, um, so that it's more like stopping at the opponent's move at the end of the variation. And the last one is the elimination. In some positions where there is a definite mating threat, and all, it's easier to find the best move. But in other positions where it is fuzzy and you might have to improve your position and all, it's hard to pick on a move. So another trick is to start eliminating some of the candidate moves. See whether there is a strong defense by the opponent. So about building pattern. So this is a simple mating attack. So you can consider this as one pattern where white to move and rook f8 is a mate. It's a back rank mate, so it is one of the pattern that you can easily recognize if you have solved such problems. Now slightly changed from the previous position. Now we have queens on the board and also a rook from the black side. Now if you are familiar with the previous pattern, now you will also think about whether you can try to force this same pattern here, which is can I do the same back rank mate on f8? So in this case, if you now use the calculation with that previous pattern idea, you can calculate that really works here also with the queen f8, rook into f8 and rook into f8 mate. So from the previous pattern, now you are familiar with another pattern. Let's say now from the previous position, the king is at g8 instead of h8. So now, since you are familiar with the previous pattern, now you will try to think about calculating whether you can apply that pattern here. So you definitely need the black king at h8 to apply that pattern for the mating. Now if you think, you will find it out that you can give a queen f7 check to push the black king to h8, and then you have similar position where you can execute the mating at f8. So based on the previous pattern, if you remember such patterns, now you will realize that you can give a check and push the king and then try the mating thing. So note that these patterns build one upon the other. So this is like coming again back from the first pattern where king was an h8 and you can mate with rook f8. Now slightly changed position where now king is at g8, but you have a bishop on g4. And with the combination of that initial pattern and queen f7 check pattern, now you can build upon that and see, okay, if a black king goes to h8, there is a mating threat, but have a bishop, so can I give a check and push the king to h8? So which is possible here with bishop e6, and you can push the black king to h8 and then rook f8 mate. So now you realize that there is another pattern based on the build upon the previous pattern. So when you solve this based on the previous patterns, you can solve this problem, and once you solve this problem, you're familiar with this pattern. So the key is you should remember all these patterns, you can't just forget. So we will look at some three problems based on some of these ideas. So first one will be how building on patterns helps in solving a puzzle. That puzzle is Reddit 2664 on chess.com. Okay, this puzzle, the position is to showcase the patterns thing. If you look at this position, two patterns you should recognize. One is like if you can take d into e5, there is a fork for queen and bishop, but the thing is it's defended by only your queen, whereas black has queen and bishop. And another pattern is if you think that assume that black does not have this queen and bishop at f6, then you can try your bishop e6 check and pushing the king to h8 and then rook f8 mate. So with these two patterns, you will think about, can I take bishop into, can I take a pawn into e5? Because in this case, black cannot take from queen, because you will take queen into queen, and bishop into queen will result with bishop e6 check, queen h8, and then rook f8 mate. So that is one calculation you will try to do till the end of that variation. So definitely black won't take it with queen, instead it will take it with pawn. So now you cannot execute that, because even if you take queen into bishop, that is also one thing you should always consider while solving puzzles. Can I sacrifice my queen with queen into bishop on e5? So then queen will take back the queen and defend the e6 square. So there is no way to mate. but again you will rethink. So now the actual defense on the black side is the their queen. So if queen is not defending e6, then and bishop is not in the f file, you can execute the mate. So how can you achieve that? So that's where again you will think, okay, I will take d into e5. So they will take with bishop. Now can I deflect the queen with a threat so that they have to move the queen? So that's when you can find out a solution like queen into c7, sacrificing your queen. So what it does is it creates a threat to capture queen into bishop on b7. So to avoid that, black has to capture queen into queen, because there is no, because otherwise the another idea from the white side is capture queen into queen and then execute the mate pattern of bishop e6 and rook f8. Now if they take the queen, then you will try the same mate in attack of bishop e6 check. Now if king moves to h8, you have rook f8 mate. Instead, only defense on the black side is to sacrifice or give the queen back. So now what will you do? Normal tendency is you will play bishop into f7, but that kind of stops there. Like for rook into bishop versus two bishops with 6 versus 4 pawns, so it's not a winning for white. So again, here calculation comes into picture. You should do more like in-depth calculation. So the solution is actually look into queen, because now there is obviously queen, a king cannot escape the discovered check. If it escapes that, it has to move to h8, then there is a mate. So now you have a threat of winning the material with rook into bishop on b7 and giving a check. So yeah, it can try maybe one giving one check where you can just escape the check. But there is one tricky defense with bishop c8 for black. And now again normal tendency is, now like let's say you will try to say bishop into bishop, like bishop c8, then you will lose the rook on f7. King can capture it, and again you're two pawn down. Or if you let's say move the rook to e7, then they will capture bishop into bishop and rook into bishop. Again you will have rook versus bishop and two pawns, so again it's not winning. So here again you should find a winning move, which is bishop into pawn. The idea is you're still maintaining the previous threat of discovered check and also winning the piece with rook c7. So now, yeah, if black moves a pawn to move away, we will give a discovered check and win the bishop, and you can continue. So now we will look at another puzzle based on elimination, and which is rated at 2582. In this position, you will see that the black king cannot move. It has no other square to move. And if it is possible to give a check, let's say if it is possible for you to give a check and at g7, then you can make the black skin. So that is something that you can easily see when you look at this position. Also, let's say if it was possible for you to give a check on g5, say with your bishop, then you kind of can push the black king away to g7, and then you can use your queen with the help of bishop to create some mating threads. So that is another thing which can come to your mind. Can I somehow move my bishop to g5? Now you should try to eliminate um, a move, or can I give a check on g7 with my queen? That is also a mate. So now kind of it comes down to, can I move my queen or bishop? And that's where you need to find out where black has a good defense so that you can eliminate a move. If you think about bishop, say f6, with the idea of bishop g5, there is a strong defense by black with queen e4. So here there are two things. One is you cannot give bishop g5 check now, because rook can take the bishop as pawn is pinned. Also, since their queen is now blocking our queen, obviously our queen is hanging, but also like if you just look at our ideas, like even if you give bishop g5 check to push the king to g7, their queen is now back to at least help the king. So you cannot just try to have some mating attack with your queen and bishop. So you have to exchange the queen, and now it's no more winning. So with finding that there is a strong defense, you eliminate a move, in this case a bishop's move. So you go for the queen's move, so that even it also blocks at least defense b7 for the black king to come there for defense. So, and also you should note that there is no at least checks for white's king. So that is also one thing you will identify while finding your candidate moves. Because if there is a definite threat, then obviously you should look for checks. So here there is no defense, strong defense for black. So, and also the puzzle doesn't stop here. Okay, they take your queen with rook. Now what? Because it's kind of now there is a secondary puzzle. So you should have in your original calculations also, you should have found out that there is a pin that you can bishop, so that you will, whatever the black moves, you will win the rook. Now we will look at another puzzle about evaluate, which is rated 3058. And for evaluating, so if you look at this position, black's king kind of expose more, or like at least since it's white move, even though white's king is also exposed. Now black's the last move was rook c8, and it wants to attack c2, which is not defended. So there is a definite threat for white. So that gives an indication that okay, now you can look at checks for black. Even in puzzles you look for checks because there is a threat of the white king. Even in real games, when there is a threat, you can also look for counter threats, and so just defending the c2 pawn with some rook or queen. So here there are ideas of queen f1 check or queen a3 check. I think only those two are the checks. So you need to see which one is better to start. Or no, you cannot just look at some waiting moves because there is a threat of c2 or queen c2. And also another pattern you should look for the black king is kind of hanging, because if you kind of push the white king to say e4, you can use d3 to give a check from your queen and win black queen. So that is also one pattern that you should be aware of. If it's possible to attack the king with queen at the same line, so that king cannot move and still defend um, their queen. So here you might think that there is a possibility of a mate, but it's hard when you start calculating. It's hard to find a mate. So the solution is queen a3, king b5, then you attack with rook. Yeah, again, now you think about whether I should move queen to a4, giving a check, not allowing king to escape, or give the check with queen, because now it can escape, but you can win a pawn and still attack the king. So now again, whether we should go with the queen e3 or some queen h3 or queen b3. So the solution is queen b3 and pawn. So this is the end of the solution. So if you look at this as a solution, it's really tricky to find this solution if you are solving regular mating problems or just winning materials, because this has just improved the position. You have one extra pawn, and this is more about in the next couple of moves you can exchange. There are ways for you to exchange the queens on the board with checking the by giving a check to king and also attacking the queen. So the idea in this position is to exchange the queens and also pushing the h pawn, trying to queen it, thereby maybe winning a piece. So that's how you will win this position. So for the puzzle, sometimes it's hard to know whether it is a mating or winning the material, or even something as subtle as this, where it's about improving the position so that you'll move towards a winning position. And whenever you solve a puzzle, make sure if you find out a new pattern, just try to remember those patterns. It may be that okay, let's say there is a rook defending on one side of the king on some row, and if the solution involves attacking the rook from the other side from in the same row, you should try to remember that. Or in one solution, rook comes from the different direction towards the king to mate. You should remember such ideas so that you can apply in solving future problems, and also helps in finding best moves while playing a game. So apart from whether you solve a puzzle or fail to solve a puzzle, look at the solution and also check why you missed to solve a puzzle, and remember that pattern, because maybe that is one thing, some idea which you were not familiar previously, but now make sure that you're familiar with that so that you can solve such problems in future. So coming back to the original problem, mate in half wave. So how can you solve this? Is generic or the obvious idea you will think about is, now king can only move to gf, g1, f1 and all, black king. So you don't want to move to say c2, because king can escape at least for some time. So instead you want to move your white king to b1 and then a2, so that in two moves you can checkmate, but the puzzle says in half move. So the trick is like even it is not saying in one move. So how can you solve it? Okay, going back to again pattern building. There is a famous game between Paul Morphy and I think his father Alonso Morphy from 1850. So in this game, this position is the last, like the position before the last move played by Paul Morphy as white. If you take it as a puzzle, it is mate in one move. So how can you mate the black king? It's white to move in one move. So it is a tricky puzzle if you're seeing it for the first time. And in the game, Paul Murphy played uh, castling on the king side, which is a mate. So it's a one move castling, and black king cannot escape, so it's a mate. So if you are familiar with this pattern, then you will know, or if you assume that it is a half move, since the puzzle itself says half move, you can assume that king has moved half as part of the castling on white queen side. So as another and the remaining half move, white's rook on a1 will move to d1, and it's a checkmate. So yeah, it's a fun puzzle, but it kind of gives you an idea of how some patterns can help you to solve other puzzles. And coming back to my journey, yeah, this week I crossed 3000 rating on chess.com puzzles. And some of these ideas that I shared helped me to cross that number. And definitely it should help in improving the chess skills as you solve more puzzles. It's easier to identify any mistakes from the opponents or some threats that you can create and all. I hope this will help you to improve your puzzle solving skills and also in general your chess skills. Thanks for watching, and if you find this useful, please like, subscribe, and share. And good luck with your puzzle solving.